Hello, my lovely beautifuls. My name is Haley Heartless, real name, no gimmicks, and this is my first social justice YouTube video. First, I'd like to thank the client that gave me an Amazon gift card so that I could buy my webcam. I'll provide a link to his Facebook profile below. Just kidding. I know this video is going to be rough. I'm filming on a webcam with built-in ring light. I've got a really loud heat sink to my right. And I'm sorry if I don't know how to produce a video like this yet, but this is how beautiful things start, and I really hope that by starting out like this, building up my ability to produce new content and videos, I can, get a bit better at it. I'd really like to get a proper microphone so that I don't have this background noise. So if you want to help me out, I'm going to put a link to my Amazon wishlist below, and there's a microphone on that wishlist. I think it's like $50. That would make a world of difference for my ability to pump out content like this. In today's video, we're going to talk about the difference between rebellion and revolution and why it matters to us as feminists. My target audience for this video is going to be feminists and social justice activists, but I'm hoping that anyone in a hierarchical organization, such as a union or a business, can maybe get something out of it. I was recently asked by a new organization called Face of BC about making a video on women's assertiveness in the boardroom and the bedroom. It's a big conversation, but I think a good place to start is examining a couple of types of assertiveness that we practice as equity-seeking activists. The two types being revolution and rebellion. A revolutionary act is an act that inspires other people to take up your cause. We practice revolution when we organize events, create spaces, and collaborate on projects. Revolutionary acts build your credibility in your activist community. Acts of rebellion are skirmishes. They're often used to draw attention to a shortcoming or an issue in the community. We practice rebellion when we boycott, deplatform, or call people out. Acts of rebellion draw on your credibility in order to be successful. Credibility is important because it affects the types of activism we can do and how effective we can be as activists. It also affects our opportunities, particularly if you're working with a large organization with a lot of hierarchy, like a political party or a union or a nonprofit, or if you're trying to climb the corporate ladder. Credibility is earned when we practice activism that inspires and builds community, and it's spent when we practice activism that's confrontational. Rebellion can be a lot of fun. It's really satisfying and addictive, particularly when you're rebelling against someone who wants to be on your side. That's also how it becomes a trap. And it's a trap I see a lot of social activists falling into. It starts by seeing an event or something on social media that you recognize as oppressive. So maybe you post something on Facebook or send out a tweet and tag them in it to draw attention to the problem. And because the event wants to support your community, they change and you get to feel like you made a difference. This type of activism is really easy, it's really visible, it's really rewarding. So you start doing it again and again. What you don't see is that each time you're doing this, you're calling on your circle of activists to join you. You're spending your social capital and your credibility in order to do so. People like positivity. We need hope. And so your allies and supporters see that your activism is always confrontational, and they'll start to tune you out. And when this happens, it becomes more difficult for you to affect change. So you might up the ante by using more forceful language to get others on your side. So before you might have been drawing attention to an oversight, now you're drawing attention to an act of supremacy. And anyone who doesn't support you is a bigot. You start to use emotional manipulation to get allies on board. You're pushed further and further from your activist core. Eventually, your allies and your community no longer respect you. They're afraid of you. And as people distance themselves from you, for their own mental health, you're either isolated, or worse, you end up in a toxic social justice community, founded on mutual fear. Your new core activist community is afraid of you and you're afraid of them. Your politics need to be pure because any mistake is punished severely. Your community is paralyzed and any nuance or conversation is silenced. Being in these sorts of social justice communities, like the ones that you find on Facebook or on Tumblr, can be incredibly unhealthy, especially if you've already got mental health issues. It takes a huge toll on your mental health. And if you're already involved in these sorts of communities, especially if you're involved heavily, I'd advise you to either get out or come up with an exit strategy so you're reducing your reliance on those communities. Your ability to organize, your ability to be an effective activist can be stifled when you get into this mode. The wider community doesn't invite you to things, and when you show up, you cause tension and apprehension in your comrades and they're afraid to speak. Your credibility is depleted. You might not be able to get it back, at least not without seriously adjusting the way you organize. Building credibility when it's lost is incredibly difficult. It often takes years. It might even take a change of scenery. You might have to move to a new community. And maybe that's a topic for another video. So what do we do as activists to avoid being feared by our comrades? My first piece of advice is to realize that the glory from callouts and counter-organizing is fleeting, and each time you do it, you're spending a piece of your credibility. So pick your battles. You don't need to take on the weight of the world all by yourself. You can let other people lead the charge sometimes. You can hold your peace when you don't have the energy or support to spend on certain fights. If you're going to a conference or a convention, know what's being talked about ahead of time, read the pamphlet they give you, see what needs to be spoken against, prepare your speaking notes on those subjects, and find out if any allies can speak on some of those subjects instead of you so that you're not always at the mic delivering bad news. People like positivity at the mic, and you don't want people tuning you out every time your face is on the big screen. You want to inspire, and you want to be revolutionary. Also, speak in favor of things you like. Don't just pick things to speak against. I'd say spend at least 70% of your energy creating and inspiring. Get involved in organizing events, create spaces, write, attend meetings. When possible, talk to people face to face. It's so much more difficult for people to dehumanize you when you're sitting across the table from them drinking tea. You might be the first trans person or sex worker this person has ever spoken to, and your presence in their life might alter their views drastically. They see you as a person, not as an idea on a computer screen. You should assume good faith until proven otherwise. Most people on the left do want to be good allies. There's no need to beat them over the head with their mistakes. Try to avoid public confrontation when possible. You will need to correct your fellow activists. I suggest you start with a call-in. Send an email expressing your concerns, offer to meet them for coffee, or suggest resources that could help them. The most effective way to bring people on board is to let them think that it's their idea. The second most effective way is to let them accept credit for it being their idea. So when you confront them in public, you lose those options. And as women, we're used to people accepting credit for our work, but by confronting people this way, hopefully you're building something, you're getting something out of this. You're building a bridge, you're building credibility with the organization or the person that you've helped set straight. Sometimes a public confrontation is unavoidable or necessary. And by calling them in first, having a dialogue, learning about their organization and where it's been, you're building your case for when you need to issue that call out or call the community to action. You're gathering your intel, you're learning from your allies and your community. You're finding out a bit about their history and how that organization or person interacts with your community. And from that you can learn whether a call out is going to be successful or whether you should just drop it. When you issue that call out, one of the worst things you can do is act on obsolete information. This organization did a transphobic thing in 2011, and then a trusted activist in your community chimes in and says, yes, But they engaged in an accountability process and they've taken steps to assure it never happens again. Ah, heck. Now you look like a fool. Now you're questioning whether it was necessary to call them out, or maybe you could have just sent them an actionable email. Just remember, a revolutionary inspires. They lead by respect and credibility. They create a movement and invite others aboard. And if you are a revolutionary at heart, you'll have the credibility to spend when you need to rebel. If you're always a rebel, if you get stuck in that trap of constant callouts and deplatforming, if you're always seen fighting skirmishes and you're never seen building community, you'll find yourself leading through fear and manipulation, and that's not the way to build a movement. Maybe it's tone policing, but it's also human nature. And if you have a lot to be pissed off about, you're going to have a harder time of it. And that's one of the ways that privilege manifests itself in social justice spaces. Those with the least to be pissed off about are often granted the most credibility. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on this, so feel free to comment below. If you like what I have to say, please hit like and subscribe. Hopefully I'll be making more content like this in the future. If you want to support me, consider buying me some production equipment or computer stuff off my Amazon wish list. I'll link it below. Production equipment would be huge right now, because right now all I have is this webcam and a ring light and nothing else. So I would love some production equipment. There's some inexpensive stuff on my wish list. I think there's stuff as cheap as $20 that can make a world of difference in my ability to produce these sorts of videos. If you want to send me an Amazon gift card, it has to be from Amazon Canada, or support me by sending me cryptocurrency, you can contact me through my website or send me a private message on Twitter. My Twitter handle is @SadosTaylor, and I'll tell you how to do that. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time, be a revolutionary.